Hello, friends. Today's episode, we've got something a little different. We're looking into some strange cases where families disappeared. Join us. Now, we see so many cases of people going missing all over the world. In the woods and out, there are people just vanishing, seemingly into thin air, and without a trace or shred of evidence left behind. We aren't talking here about cases that can easily be explained away, or where there may be some type of reasonable or rational explanation for multiple people, families mainly, going missing all at the same time. These are only some of the cases where entire families, most of them just out together to make some memories and with every intention of ending up back in their homes when the adventure was over, only they were never seen again. They never made it back home. Where they ended up and what happened to them has never been adequately explained, if an attempt was made to explain it at all. Come and take a walk with us again, folks, and this time keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, and see if anything here sounds familiar to you. Perhaps you and your family were out one day doing the exact same thing as the following people were, and maybe you came across something strange too. Only, in the end, everything worked out for you, and you made it back safe and sound. Here are just a few examples of families of people vanishing without a trace. First up, we have the Roberts family. John Roberts and his wife Julie Englehart, both 49, and their 11-year-old daughter Brooke Roberts went missing on April 6, 2019, from Hesperia, California, in the United States. The family had lived in Hesperia, but in 2017 had moved to John's hometown of Ozark, Alabama, and then back to Hesperia again in 2019. The trio were staying in a Motel 6 while the parents looked for work and a more permanent residence. Julie had a phone conversation with an unnamed relative on the 6th of October 2019, where she stated she'd found a job cleaning used trailers for an unknown business in the Hesperia area. She also told the relative that the family was in the process of moving to Spring Valley Lake. She was excited about the new job and the move, and seemed to be in good spirits. Nothing struck the relative as odd or wrong about the call, and after a brief conversation, they hung up and went about their respective lives. Only this would be the very last time anyone has heard from any member of the family. Julie was supposed to call the relative the next day, but the call never came. There's no further information about this case and no news since that last phone call. The family's whereabouts are still unknown to this day. Detectives are seeking contact from anyone who may have information on the whereabouts of John, Julie, or Brooke, and are asked to contact Detective Jason Schroeder at the Hesperia Sheriff Station on 760-947-1500. Next, we have the disappearance of Alan and Terry Westerfield. On September 12, 1964, brothers Alan and Terry Westerfield vanished without a trace. Alan was just 6 years old, and Terry was 11. On this day, their stepfather, Carl Bach, dropped the boys off in front of the Broadway Theater on Hay Street in downtown Fayetteville, North Carolina. The boys were planning on seeing a double feature, but when Carl came to pick them up at the agreed-upon time, the boys were nowhere in sight. It was just about dusk, and alarmingly, there was no sign of the young boys. Earlier in the day, the boys' mother, Margaret, had left them in the care of their regular babysitter, a woman named Barbara Temple, so she could go to work. When she returned home, she found that Miss Temple had been dismissed by the boy's stepfather, Carl Bach, whom she was separated from at the time. Carl explained he had dropped the boys off to see the double feature at the movie theater. Upon hearing this, the pair began to argue, which led to Margaret storming out of the house and heading to nearby Fort Bragg to drink at the NCO Club. When she returned home, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and her children still weren't home. Margaret then confronted Carl, and he explained to her how he'd gone to the theater at approximately 7:45 p.m. to pick the boys up and bring them home, but could find no trace of them. He said he had waited there at the theater until about 9:30 before considering they may have walked home or that their mom had picked them up instead. Immediately upon hearing this, Margaret called the police and reported her sons as missing. There were many discrepancies found in Carl Bach's story, including his own girlfriend at the time who worked at the theater, telling investigators she did not remember seeing the two boys at the theater that night. At around 3:30 in the afternoon, one of Terry's friends had come over and asked if he could come out and play, to which Carl informed the child that Terry was being punished and could not come outside at the moment. Also, Miss Temple, the babysitter who Carl sent away, claims she insisted that she stay with the boys until their mother Margaret returned, but Carl insisted even more that she leave and said he would care for the boys until their mother returned. Eventually, Barbara Temple gave up the argument and left as she was told. Margaret, Carl, and at least a dozen other people were brought in for questioning, but nothing ever came of any of it. In the year 2000, when the case was being looked at again, it's been reported that Carl Bach was brought in and was at first incredibly nervous. However, when he was told he wasn't being charged with anything, he suddenly became arrogant and uncooperative with the authorities. So, what happened to these two boys? While many believe the stepfather was involved somehow in their disappearance and that he was somehow looking for a way to get his revenge on their mother, Margaret, for ending their relationship, and while no evidence points toward anything he said about dropping them off at the theater that night or picking them up could be confirmed, the fact remains that these two little boys were never found. No trace of them, and no evidence showing one way or another what possible fate could have befallen them. To this day, no one has ever been charged with anything, and police are apparently no closer to solving this, North Carolina's oldest missing person case. Now we have the Salomon family. On October 13, 1982, Stacy Pearman, one of the neighbors of the Salomon family, called the police when she noticed the family's pool was overflowing in their backyard. She and her mother went and knocked on the door first, but when nobody answered, they became concerned. When the police walked into the home that day, they were not expecting what they found. There was no one inside the residence, but everything seemed perfectly normal. A bit too normal, actually. Even the bed in the master bedroom was made up beautifully, and there seemed to be nothing out of place. This was, of course, upon first glance. As the investigators looked a little deeper, they found 14-year-old Michelle Salomon's bedroom in absolute disarray. Her bed frame was broken, the bedding was missing, and there were some spots of what looked like blood on her mattress. Elaine Salomon, her husband Saul, and their 14-year-old daughter Michelle and 9-year-old son Mitchell were all missing. Upon interviewing friends and other family members of the Salomons, investigators found out that Elaine Salomon never even made her bed to begin with, so the fact that it was made so perfectly that day, at the time of the disappearance, was deeply disturbing, according to cousin and best friend Doreen Laffer. After a brief but thorough investigation, nothing was found that alluded to where the family could have gone, and they were never found. After suffering nightmares for years, Stacy Pearman decided to investigate the mystery on her own. She found a man named Harvey Rader, a man who had attended a car auction with Saul the night of he and his family's disappearance. This man's story was said to be riddled with inconsistencies and full of what she called flat-out lies. Harvey was also linked to 3 other missing person cases. At the end of the day, however, no arrests have ever been made, and the facts in this case are few and far between. Theories aren't hard to come by, but it remains to this day that the Salomon family disappeared, seemingly without a trace, into thin air that night, so long ago, in October of 1982. A whole family, a mother, father, daughter, and son, just poof and gone. How does this even happen? We'll let you be the judge. Next up, we have Simon Cadwell, Chantal McDougall, and their daughter Leila. In July of 2007, Simon Cadwell, his wife Chantal, and their daughter all vanished without a trace from their southwestern Australian home in Nannup, Perth. The family were renting a home, and a man named Antonio Popic lived on the property in a caravan. Chantal's father, Jim McDougall, reported his daughter and her family missing in October, when he was told there had been no sign of them, and nothing but a note that said "Gone to Brazil" stuck to the front door of the rental home. He stated, "After a few weeks, I was a bit suspicious we didn't hear, so I actually contacted overseas where they were supposed to be, and there was no record. So I got really worried and contacted missing persons." Antonio Popic had also gone missing. In November of that same year, a month after Simon and his family were reported as missing, Mr. Popic's brother reported him as missing as well. Investigators found that none of the 4 missing persons' passports had been used, nor had their bank accounts or credit cards. Nothing to indicate they were on a simple vacation, as the note left on their front door had alluded to. Acting Sergeant Fiona Capron said they had settled their lease, and it seems they left in quite a hurry, but left no sign where they could have gone. None of the four had ever used their cell phones again either. It's a huge mystery as to where any of them could have possibly ended up, or why. Sergeant Capron stated, "As far as we know, a couple of days before they went missing, they sold the car that Chantel owned. They left their property in their house at Nantucket, and they haven't been seen since." Simon Cadwell is said to have been a very charismatic cult leader, and therefore the search for the family and their friend had led to investigations into whether or not they had run off to join some kind of religious sect. Though many reports have come in leading the police to think that this may very well be the case, no conclusive evidence has ever come to light making it a fact. The police have also issued a national missing persons alert and have continued working on the case and following up with any and all leads, regardless of how trivial, that still come in to this day. So what happened to this entire family and their lodger? How could four people just vanish into thin air? This case also has so much rumor and speculation surrounding it, but at the end of the day, when basing opinions solely on fact and evidence, there is almost nothing to go by, and their whereabouts remain unknown. Now, while all the cases we've discussed here today contain different circumstances, and the people come from all different walks of life and time frames, one absolute fact remains constant and the same. Every single one of them seemed to simply vanish from the face of the earth, never to be seen or heard from again. The fate of not knowing is sometimes said to be worse than actually knowing the friend or loved one has been deceased or what actually became of them. In these cases, and so many more across the world, the rumor and speculation that we mentioned earlier tend to twist the case and bend it one way or another, sometimes even turning it into something which cheapens the memories of the missing. Let's try and not do that here, folks. Let's keep it respectful and continue to not only pray for the missing and their loved ones, but also to come forward with any and all information, no matter how small and inconsequential it may seem to us, to the proper authorities, in hopes that some closure can eventually be provided, and justice, if necessary, to the families and friends of these, the lost people of our world. Some very, very strange disappearances indeed. I look forward to your comments, but please keep it friendly and respectful. As always, be good to yourselves and each other. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you just a little farther on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.